or a local nonprofit organization that helps people in poverty and youth struggling with addictions. I continue to write for and advise local, national, and international charities. And today's workshop, 3 strategies to write proposals that get funded. It's a topic that's very close to my heart. Call me crazy, but I love writing funding proposals. And part of the tagline for my freelance business, which is called Reimer Reason Communications, a play on my last name. Only if you pronounce it right. If you're a telemarketer and you say Reimer, you don't get the joke. So the tagline for my business is helping world changers tell their stories. And this aspect of helping people tell their stories is really important to me. So in the beginning of my career, I was directly helping people, and I loved that. I loved sitting with people in poverty, listening to them, just really being with them. But I discovered actually the best contribution that I can make is helping charities multiply their work by telling their stories. And I do that through content writing, like newsletters, annual reports, e-newsletters, that type of thing. But fundraising proposals is a special multiplication tool. When you tell the story well, you get the funds that helps a charity continue to do the amazing work that they're doing. And so this workshop is all about me sharing some of my secrets on how to write a really great proposal. Okay, here we go. The next slide here. Oops. So I want to, this might seem really basic, but I want to talk about the purpose of a funding proposal. So some people with money, they want to do good in the world. And you, with your nonprofit, are doing good things and you need money. So the purpose of a compelling funding proposal is to build a bridge between the good funders want to do and in the world and the positive impact your organization makes. I want you to hold that image of a bridge in your mind because this is something really important. I think sometimes something I see nonprofits do is talk a lot about their work in a way that is all about them. You love your work, you're impassioned about it, and it feels like when you share that work, it should be obvious why people should support it. But it's not obvious. And that's where the bridge comes in. When you remember that your funder is a person who wants to do good in the world and they have priorities, and this bridge matches their priorities with the good you're doing. So that's what we're going to work toward in our workshop here today. So the 3 strategies to write proposals that get funded are: determine alignment. Number 2, define impact. Number 3, demonstrate need. Now, this isn't everything there is to say about grant proposals. I'm sure you have been to other webinars. You've read things about how to write a great grant proposal. This is just kind of my top 3 things that I think are really important. Okay, I'm going to go through them one by one. So strategy 1 is determining alignment. So this is really important because it comes down to respect to me. So the funder, coming back to my original point, that the funder is somebody who wants to do good in the world. Doing your research and really checking for alignment before you apply for a grant is an act of respect. You're remembering that the funder has their own priorities and values, and you're only going to reach out to them with a proposal that makes sense to them and it fits with what's aligned with their priorities. So the ways that you find out about their priorities, you do research. There's different tools you can use. Sometimes there's like websites that gather information about foundations all in one spot, and you can review things like their mission, their vision, their grant focus, and the grant size. Now, some of these things you might have to intuit a little by looking around, especially grant size. Grant size is something you can find out by looking at past projects they funded. Past projects they funded is also another really great insight into the types of organizations they choose to work with and see themselves aligned with. This can give you a clue if, oh yeah, hey, my organization's kind of like that one. I think I would have a good chance to get funded too. Here's an example of a foundation's mission, vision, and grant focus. So I've removed the name of the foundation, but it says the mission is the blank foundation offers grants to spark innovation and build capacity for healthy Canadian Christian charities and with community organizations based in Cambridge. So this is Cambridge, Ontario. So what I can intuit as I read this mission, I know that this is an organization that is interested in innovation. They want to build capacity. So that's things like infrastructure, training, maybe new staff members that give you new capacity as an organization. They're also interested in Canadian organizations and Christian organizations, as well as community-based organizations in a very particular geographic region. When I look at their vision, they say, humbled by Jesus' life, we envision a bold philanthropy that stretches the ability of people and organizations to learn and serve at the margins. So you get the idea that they really want to empower the charities they work with to serve people who are on the margins. This foundation outlined their portfolio focus. They partner with charities having broad impact and working in the following areas: community development, education, and international development. Those are quite clear priorities, and it would be fairly, to me, obvious whether your organization is a fit or not. So I'm going to...
Hey, Sandra, real quick, whatever,
Yeah.
if you wanted to, whether we stop with the first question here that's here.
Sure. I was going to
goes,
stop for a question anyway, but go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Related to sort of researching, places. And the question is, how do we know how much to ask for when our funding need, funding need is more than what any individual funder is able to offer? How to explain that in the proposal?
Yep, I love that. That is, that's done in your budget section, and it's actually good not to ask one foundation or one source for all the money you need for a project. It's a much stronger ask if you show that you're asking one foundation for this amount of the part of the project, another for this part, and then you've raised donations from your own funding base as well that contributes to the project. And one of the reasons that's important is because it demonstrates that you're not reliant on that one foundation, but instead that you have a broad base of support, and your project or your organization is not going to cease to exist if this foundation doesn't fund you every year. It looks like Dawn has her hand up.
Yeah, Dawn.
Yeah, thank you. It was my question, and I just wanted to go a little bit deeper with it because there's still a question for me in here. Our funding that we need is for a property purchase so that we have some place to work from. So breaking up the funding, I'm not sure how to do that in a grant proposal. It's all meant for just the property purchase, but we need a large amount. We need $2 million.
Right. So you don't break it up as in separate it into line items, but you're saying we're going to get 500,000 from this foundation, 500 from this, another 500,000 from our broad base of support.
Okay. And then list the others that we are applying for?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. That's the question nobody's ever answered for me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So related to this first strategy of alignment, anybody want to state what kind of projects you might apply to the foundation I showed? What kind of project might you, looking at their portfolio focus, which is community development, education, international development? You have a thought about the kind of project you might pitch to these guys?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So I'm thinking about educational programs because now I'm doing a lot of programs, but mostly from my income, okay, from my personal income, and it's really difficult. So I am looking for educational programs for some that I can do. Like now I have some volunteer psychologists that are ready with me to do this program for my people that came after war with traumas, you know, and they need it. They really need it. And we start to implement these programs, but like I said, this is just volunteer and from my personal foundations, from my personal money. So how can I do that? How directly to start this, because this is for me all new.
Yep.
I don't know how to start it even. If you can help me, I would be very, very much appreciated. Thank you.
Sure. So I'll give you a brief idea and how it might fit with a foundation like this. So you want to educate Ukrainian teenagers who are new immigrants to the US. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct. Yes.
Okay.
It's teenagers, it's children from 9 until 19 years old and their parents. I also do programs, professional educational programs for their parents, because you know,
Okay.
many immigrants came to USA. They are professionals, but they have like not sure in themselves, and they are so worried that their experience and skills are not accepted here. So I help them also in this way.
Great.
Thank you.
So then, you know, a kind of project you might pitch to a foundation like this is you design a project around education, and I would make it for like one age group, like where it's, say, children and teenagers together. And you talk about, you know, let's say you applied for $10,000 to pay the instructors and to do include the administration time it would cost to administer the program. And then you would say what outcomes would happen. So the children and teenagers would feel more confident, they would feel more welcome, they would be more integrated into their community, that type of thing. So I see another question, but I'm going to move on and we will have another break for questions shortly. I don't want to run out of time. And yeah, you're welcome. Okay. So here's some more pro tips on related to this strategy, which is to clearly demonstrate how your project fits with the funder's grant focus. I cannot overemphasize how important this is. Again, it's about respect. That funder is a person with priorities. And so you are telling them in your grant proposal how your project aligns with what's important to them. And one of the ways you can do this is reuse their language to describe your project. That means that you've read what's important to them and you care and know how to use the language and the concepts back to them and how your project fits with the way they describe things. That's one of those bridge things. And the sturdier that bridge between the good the funder wants to do and the good you are doing, the positive impact you're having in the world, the more likely you are to be funded. Strategy number 2 is to define impact. This is something I had an insight on a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago or so. And this concept, if you listen to nothing else I say, listen to this strategy. This is the one that will make a really big difference. So what we're going to do for the next few minutes is think about the cost per unit to make a difference in your organization. And what this is basically is quantifying the difference you make. As much as possible, you want to talk about the dollar amount it takes to do this amount of good. And one of the reasons that this is important is many people who run foundations or maybe have a business that donates funds to the community, they're business people and they want to know their return on investment. So again, this is an act of respect to speak their language and to translate what you do into these units of impact. I'm going to get more into depth on this and you'll see how it works. Okay. Oops. So a simple impact formula is the total cost of your program divided by the number of people helped. It's really, really basic, but it's kind of a quick and dirty way that you can figure out the cost per unit of impact. I'm going to give you 2 examples and then give you an impact calculator to play with so you can start figuring this out yourself. Oh, just a second, I missed something back on this slide. I wanted to give you an example. The simple formula for determining the cost of your unit of impact is total program cost divided by number of people helped. If it's relevant, you can also add a time period like 3 months or a year. And this is a game changer when it comes to applying for grants. A few years ago, I started using this simple formula to help my clients define their impact with a dollar amount per person. This one change sharpened grant proposals and increased the odds of success. So one organization I wrote a proposal for had applied to a foundation for $10,000 to supply fixed channel radios to villagers in South Sudan. They made a general request for $10,000 toward the whole project, and the request was rejected. I wrote to the same foundation on their behalf with a clearly defined project, and the proposal for $30,000 was accepted. So we asked for triple the amount, but because the impact was defined, they said yes. The difference was that we determined the cost per unit of impact. In the case of this organization, their unit of impact is $10 per radio, which is listened to by between 7 and 10 people. So for $1, the foundation can reach one person with life-saving health education and faith-based programming. Are you starting to understand how this works and what this means? I'm going to give you some more examples. Okay, so I recently wrote some proposals for a charity that feeds local kids on weekends and school holidays. I'm fictionalizing their financial numbers, but you'll get the idea. Let's say the total cost to operate their feeding program was $1 million per year and that they feed 1,000 kids per year. Their unit of impact would be $1,000 per child per year or $275 per child per day. Does that make sense? Okay. When you know your unit of impact, you can design projects that are attractive to funders. For example, it is much more attractive to ask for $22,000 to feed 500 kids for the 16 days of March break than it is to make a general ask for $22,000 toward a $1 million annual budget. And you see how it's much more exciting and the funder feels like they're making a difference instead of $22,000 being a drop in the bucket that doesn't make a difference. And whoops, I have one more example. Just go back. Okay, now it was Michelle, I believe, who talked about buying a property. So I want to talk about that case because that's a little harder to demonstrate your impact than a per person unit type impact, but I believe it can still be done. So this is an example of an infrastructure project, which buying property is an infrastructure type thing. So you might say your unit of impact is harder to define, and I get it. This example It's more challenging to design a project that demonstrates impact when you need money for infrastructure, but it can still be done. For example, I'm working with a radio broadcasting charity that needs money for better broadcast equipment. This is not a very exciting project, right? It's like, ugh, more equipment, who cares? Unless you tie it back to your mission and the impact it will have on people. Again, I have fictionalized the numbers. But for this proposal, I framed the ask to request $100,000 toward a $500,000 project that will reduce manual labor, resulting in 800 hours per year. The staff can reinvest in community events and developing positive audio content for radio and podcasts. Can you see the difference where we're tying it back to the mission and to the ultimate impact that it's going to have? So Mark, I'm going to break again here for questions. If you have a general question, I want you to save it till the end when we're going to have a good solid Q&A time. But if you have a question related to this unit of impact that I've been talking about, feel free to share it now. Anybody have a question or comment? Okay. Sounds like you all have specific questions related to your charity. All right, we will keep moving. Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of time to think about this unit of impact for your charity. I developed a handy dandy little impact calculator for you in Google Docs. I'm going to pop that into the chat. And you can hop on there, make a copy, and then you can start playing with that. If you don't want to go into Google Docs, basically all it is this formula. Your total program cost or your project cost divided by the number of people helped. At this stage of the game, you are just doing ballparks. Don't worry about getting it exact. It's just to help you start thinking about units of impact. So I'm going to give you probably about 4 minutes, and then we'll come back and just chat about what you discovered.
Okay, Sandra, mine is coming out with a really low number. Is that per person though?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is it? Okay. All right. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it should be per person. And when you have that per person amount, you can do so many things with it. So let's say that you want to ask for $50,000 for something, then you get out your unit of impact and you say, now how many people could I help for $50,000? And then you plug in that number and you'll pop out the number of people you can help. What are other people discovering as you try this out? We can start chatting as people continue working on it. Dawn.
Sandra, I'm actually finding out that I'm struggling more than I thought I would to come up with the impact, because not everything is financial gain and impact. What we do as a church, some of it is counseling, some of it is spiritual healing, some of it is offering services such as ceremonies that people can't get anywhere else. How would I measure that for total impact?
Right. So one of the things you can do is divide it up a little more. So let's say that you have a staff person who's primarily responsible for counseling, and that their salary is $45,000. And then there's admin time to support that person. And let's say to run the counseling program, it takes a total of $60,000, including that staff person's time. And then 100 people come for counseling per year. That would be your unit of impact for that specific outcome, that project. Does that make sense, Dawn?
It does, but I'm still not quite sure how to apply it to my situation. That's going to take me more than 4 minutes to do this one.
Oh, yeah, no, it's just to start you thinking on the path of impact. So I think the mistake that I'm seeing and how this counteracts it is we make our requests too general. And then the funder is left thinking, I don't know if I'm making a difference. I'm going to throw $50,000 at this organization. I don't know if it's going to make a difference. Whereas Dawn, you know, your church is making a difference. So you just need to clarify what it costs to make that difference. And I would talk about the volunteer hours leveraged in a project like that. So if I'm writing about an agency that say they have 5 staff and 200 volunteers, you can quantify the full-time equivalent cost it would be for those volunteers to be paid. And you can mark that down as a contribution to the project to demonstrate that you have a broad base of support for this project. And
I
that,
think what I'm struggling with, Sandra, is that the biggest part of our mission is living without money and teaching others to do the same. So every time I'm confronted with the financials, our goal is to eliminate the need for money beyond that initial funding for the property.
Okay.
We live off the land, and our goal is to teach other people to do that, to make living more affordable and planet friendly. So all of these individual projects in our plan, they don't require any other funding outside of the initial property purchase.
That's an awesome thing to talk about. So that reminds me of this infrastructure project for the radio station. When the funder kicks in $100,000 and they invest in this new software, permanently 800 hours per year of staff time are going to be freed up. That has a huge value. So your property's purchased, what did you say, 2 million?
Yes.
Okay, so $2 million is going to leverage all this good for 10, 20, 30 years. You can talk about the number of people impacted and how it's going to benefit them for one measly little investment of $2 million. Know what I mean?
Yeah, I want to imply the ripple effect. So those that we are teaching are going beyond and teaching what we teach so that we can reach more people.
Love it.
So yeah, $2 million is going to help save the world.
Totally. And that's how you have to write it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else experimenting with this and discovering something about their unit of impact? Okay, well, that's food for thought to keep thinking about. And I'm going to keep going. I'm going to share my screen again. Just a second. Okay, strategy number 3 is demonstrating need. So to take your proposals to the next level, I suggest including research and statistics to demonstrate the need for your project or program. Even if stats are not specifically requested, you can squeeze them in as you describe the need for your project. I recommend using reputable sources such as Statistics Canada or the United States Census Bureau. And I'm going to pop links to those in the chat for you. And I'm going to also give you some examples of, just a second. Okay, I'm going to get those for the chat later because, okay. Anyway, Statistics Canada or the United States Census Bureau. The reason statistics are important is because it adds credibility to your request. And it also shows you've done some research and that objectively there is a need for your program or project. So here are some examples. Okay, example 1. In addition to a low literacy level, the people of South Sudan lack education and health infrastructure. For example, in 2011, there were fewer than 100 doctors and only 15 hospitals for the whole country of more than 10 million people. Those are compelling stats and really set the stage for your solution. Next example. According to Statistics Canada, 1,425 children aged 0 to 17 lived below the low-income cutoff after tax in Cambridge in 2020. With increased and still rising food and housing costs since 2020, there are more children suffering serious food insecurity. Okay. So yeah, that demonstrates the need for statistics and how they can highlight your credibility and really set the stage for your solution, almost to feel like a no-brainer. It's like, of course, why wouldn't I give $50,000 toward this? Because this is a wonderful cause. It's needed. I can clearly see the impact that my money is going to have if I donate towards this charity. Okay, here's some bonus tips for writing proposals that get funded, and that is squeezing some testimonials and impact stats. Even if they're not asked for, I always love to throw in some client quotes just to give that real heart to your grant proposal and to move people emotionally. You want them to be convinced intellectually that this is a fantastic opportunity for doing good that aligns with their values. And then you also want to move them in the heart. It's like, wow, these people are making a difference. And here is are the people that they are going to impact and have already impacted. And this is what it's social proof, right? These clients, these people, these beneficiaries, these members, this is how they've been already impacted by this charity. You get bonus points if you draw tears when somebody is opening their wallet to donate to your charity. So that is the formal information giving part of my presentation. I'm going to leave time for Q&A, but before I do that, I just want to tell you that I am available as a funding proposal writer. So if you need a proposal writer, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email, sandra@reimer-reason.ca. And I would be absolutely happy to help you write a proposal. And I'm going to give you a tip for saving money and how to best use somebody like me. Consider hiring me just to write one proposal to strengthen your case for support, and then reuse what I write for future proposals. So as somebody with outside eyes, I'm going to be able to just kind of highlight what seems ordinary to you, but is actually amazing and special. I can bring that out in a proposal, and I can also do the research to do some of those, get some of that those compelling facts and stats that will highlight the need for your project or program. So do reach out to me for that. I actually have a second business, and that is something called Co-Labor Nation. And this is where I connect nonprofit leaders and small business owners with Canadian marketing and communication freelancers. So through my business, Co-Labor Nation, I would be happy to connect you up with really skilled people who can do a great job for you with things like website development, email marketing, Google ads, Facebook ads, anything to do with digital marketing, that kind of stuff. I can get you connected with somebody who can help you out. All right, and now it's time for Q&A.
The one thing that was from earlier was, is there a difference in how we write for a government grant versus a private foundation grant?
In a way,